Has coworking's big e-commerce era finally arrived? Welcome to Undercurrents, our deep dives that explore a trend that we feel has the potential to drastically disrupt or change the way that thousands of co-working businesses run or grow. I'm Hector Colonas, co-founder at Syncaroo and the editor of this edition of Undercurrents. In this edition, alongside industry leaders, we'll be digging into the undercurrent opportunity that e-commerce presents, who's doing e-commerce today, how is e-commerce impacting the businesses that have implemented it and their revenues, and what products are they selling online and what aren't they? What challenges do they face implementing e-commerce? And a look at their e-commerce stack with some insights from some of the vendors building the software and technology that enables this next boom. We'll then dive into some pro tips from the experts and give some final thoughts from the sponsor of this Undercurrent edition. Putting together these deep dive reports takes a literal village. And one thing we all know about in co-working is that things need to be designed so that they are sustainable. This led us down two options: sell these reports and try to break even, or find partners who wanted to fund or underwrite this kind of research, the interviews, the production, and the free global distribution of these reports. These underwriters have no editorial rights or say about what goes into these reports. And although they may be interviewed as experts, the only information that they have any control over is the foreword, i.e. telling us why they sponsor this report, and the last word, sharing what they learned from the report before we make it public. And with that, I would love to welcome this edition's underwriter, Miro Miroslavov from Office R&D, to tell us a little bit more about why they sponsored this topic.
I'm Miro from Office R&D, co-founder, CEO, and hugely excited about the topic of e-commerce. So we decided to underwrite this topic because we definitely believe that's the future of technology for co-working spaces. So many reasons. First of all, we do want to see co-working spaces make more money. At the end of the day, our mission is to help operators of flexible co-working spaces generate more revenue, grow faster, be more profitable, and the industry needs to make more money. That's the reality. And a huge piece of it is obviously e-commerce and selling directly. Our data suggests that most co-working spaces actually sell directly. And I remember one of your reports a while ago that was saying that more than 70% of most co-working spaces actually come from their own website and directly. So we believe that we see similar data and we do want to facilitate it. We want to make it smooth, super easy, and just a world-class e-commerce platform. Our industry desperately need that, and that's why probably about a year and a half ago, we decided to dedicate huge effort and investment into this area. We always, as a platform, we always had a little bit of that, but it was like a feature that was there, like public bookings, checkout pages, sign up pages, whatnot. But we never really treated this with the respect that it needed. About a year and a half ago, we decided that it's time to wrap this together into a full-blown product dedicated to co-working space, e-commerce. And there's so many exciting elements to that and so many exciting pieces. So yeah, keen to zoom into this and see also where it takes us.
In each edition of Undercurrents, we don't only tell you what we're seeing between the lines, behind the stories, throughout the things we're watching and tracking on the newsletter. We also like to bring in experts from around the co-working world to share what they're seeing, what they're doing, how it's affecting their businesses. And this edition is no different. And we are joined by these amazing industry leaders and what we call subject matter experts.
I'm Josh Dane. I am Business Operations Manager at Runway East.
Hi, I'm Ann Olson. I'm the Director of Co-working for the domain companies, and our co-working brand is the Shop Workspace.
My name is Chico Avangawe, and I am the founder and CEO of Perfect Office Solutions.
So my name is Ben Rigby, Digital Marketing and CRM Manager with X and Y.
I'm Lyndon Cookson. I'm Head of IT at Accelerate X. Kane Wilmot, CEO and co-founder of IQ Offices.
Hello, Hector. Eyal Asker, co-founder, CEO of FlexSpace AI.
Hey, Hector. Rado Enchip. I work for Office R&D as a product manager.
So why are we looking at e-commerce now? Or what is the backdrop against which we will explore e-commerce today? We have to start by looking at two completely separate parts of the world. One, what other industries are doing, and two, what our industry is doing. Starting first with the other industries. Back in 2014, Chris Anderson, an assistant professor at Cornell University of Hotel Administration, coined the term the billboard effect, which he defined as the lift in reservations made through channels other than online travel agents that is created by listing on the online travel agents. To put it more plainly, there was an impact on direct bookings by being listed on platforms like Booking.com, Expedia, the likes. So we're going to look a little bit more into this before we move on to how this is impacting our industry. Let's take a look first at hotels. It is predicted by the folks over at Skift in a report put out in November 2024 that by 2030, direct digital bookings are set to overtake those made by online travel agencies or OTAs. That's a total of $400 billion moving through direct bookings compared to OTA's $333 billion, according to their research and findings. So quite a drastic change when it comes to how people are booking hotels and the method in which that they interact. Now, obviously there's a lot of reasons why, whether it's loyalty points, benefits, alliances, all these things play into that picture, but it's a fantastic number to keep in mind that more people are booking online and directly than through these online travel agencies. Moving over to the next part of travel, which is very, very well known to be booked through online travel agencies, airlines. According to Skift again, in a report put out in September 2024, 26% of searches start on online travel agencies, but then 55% of people land up booking directly with the airline that they found. That's a 29-point different or a 29-point billboard effect gap between people who find somewhere and then go to book direct, which begs the question, if someone is finding your product and likes your product but then cannot book direct, where are they going to go? The last other industry I wanted to look at, which is involved with this kind of shift, is restaurants. Although not traditionally booked through an online travel agency, there are multiple platforms through which you can find a restaurant and make reservations. However, according to Toast in a recent report, even though 55% of searches for new restaurants started on platforms like Google, 65% chose to then go book directly from the restaurant's website. That's a 10-point billboard effect gap. Once again, drilling home that question. You've found the customer, they like your product, they choose to come direct. What happens if they can't? And that brings us to our industry. Now, of course, our volume is nowhere near the global demand for hotels, airlines, or restaurants. But with the consumerization of flex space and office space in general, customer expectations are changing rapidly. Back in 2023, we ran a survey over at Syncaroo.com asking a bunch of operators where their best converting leads came through from. Unsurprisingly, it was from direct traffic to their website. So putting these things together and this background of change in consumer preferences or customer preferences, isn't it fair to say that folks who were happy to make inquiries for bookings or tours or reach out and send an email are now expecting a more fluid, on-demand, live transaction process if they're doing it in every other element of their lives? And so with that, let's dive in deeper. So are people searching for co-working in the context of bookings? Let's have a look. This Google Trends report shows the search volume, worldwide search volume for 4 terms from 2004 to present. So over the last 21 years, what have people been searching for, or the volume, how many people have been searching for these specific 4 terms? Let's take a look. The red line symbolizes the search term for book meeting room, a pretty high intense keyword. We see an early spike in May 2004, but then we also see a bunch of sporadic bumps all the way through till around April 2011, where we see a gradual increase until it kind of takes its place in the table, and that's the red line. We then see the blue line, which is people searching for co-working day passes, starting pretty early in kind of 2017 and growing gradually up to the right. The next color is yellow, which is a search term for co-working spaces near me or co-working space near me. We see a gradual slow incline and suddenly spiking up, dipping down into the kind of COVID times, and then back up, hitting high volume traffic. This is high intent traffic, people looking to make a booking right now. Or maybe looking to find a space right now. And the last one is the green line, which tells a story of meeting rooms to book. Once again, high intent traffic, high intent search volume. We're seeing kind of over the years, it's had a steady but now growing volume for that trend. All four are going up to the right. All four are showing high intent searches. These are people who are typing into Google because they want to get some information now. So quite important to make sure that we put this also at the back of our head, that even though we are not processing the volumes that the other industries are, there is still a growing demand for the products that you sell. So that's the background. Even if people find brands or spaces or communities that they like on search engines or directories or other platforms, history and the data tells us that at some point, over 50% of them would want to transact directly with the providers that they find, if they could. So let's hear what operators are implementing e-commerce today and how it's working for them.
E-commerce is becoming a bigger part of our revenue stack over time, which is excellent because for many, many years, it was very difficult to get any revenue outside of your monthly license fees. Just very, very difficult. There was always virtuals, but it was very manual in terms of the process. Someone would call the front desk. They'd ask, what is it? How does it work? They'd ask all these questions. And then it would take some time. The sales cycle was quite long when you look at what was involved in order to close those transactions. Same on the meeting room side. And that's not to say that we still don't get phone calls and that we manually have to go through, what the value prop is of, let's say, meeting room times, on-demand services, virtuals, and so forth. But we have the ability to transact online. So we can do transactions while we sleep. That's amazing. We want to do more and more of that. The more that we can move online, the better, because it, number one, shortens the sales cycle, but number two, it standardizes the service. So you're not going in and having to do all kinds of customizations. You don't have to spend a lot of time on it. It does not draw on resources. And one of the best things about it is when you have, let's say you have a stabilized location, you get to 80% occupancy. That's stabilized for us. Some companies is 90% occupied. Whatever your number is, you have an expectation of how much license revenue you're going to get at that location. Usually that license revenue will give you a certain profit margin. So let's say, for argument's sake, it's 10%. So that's providing you a 10% profit margin. Everything that you do in e-commerce falls right to the bottom line. Your only costs are your credit card transaction fees and your cost in terms of like your website, what you have as monthly recurring for the technology that you're using. Both are very low relative to the opportunity for the cash flow. So it's an excellent business, and we're starting to see more and more companies focus on it. And with COVID on the other side of it, and during, we were seeing a lot of companies looking at these on-demand and virtual services. So we're seeing more and more opportunities, which is very exciting for our industry.
E-commerce is really about customer enablement at the end of the day. I mean, we're in an industry where we're a workplace solution, and so we're trying to find solutions at every touch point for our customers. Our journey over the last 2 years has been quite interesting. We've switched platforms during that time because we found a better operating tool, but also better for customer engagement. We saw an increase of online transactions by roughly 10%, which is great. Then we recently implemented Growth Hub, which is the new Office R&D e-commerce tool. And that was an even bigger step up. I think we hit about 13% average. just by removing those friction points for the customer. It's quite intuitive. So I really see the journey as being, how do we put our tools together to drive that experience, to remove the barriers for our customers? Because if we do that, we win, they win, everyone's happier.
So in the last 2 years, we've seen some significant growth due to actually engaging in a dedicated e-commerce platform. So previously, people were able to book on our site, but the experience was very clunky. And when we found the best way to streamline that by partnering with FlexSpace, we've seen some dramatic growth, upwards of over an additional 50 grand in the last year that we pulled in revenue, which is fantastic, across our locations in Salt Lake City and in New Orleans.
What we've actually seen is this year, what we used to see back in 2023 for the year in terms of booking volume, we're actually getting in the space of a month. So it's a huge uplift, and we only see that getting bigger. There's a clear trend, I think, that users are after sort of a self-serve journey, and e-commerce is that solution. People want things quite quick and it's instantly, without filling in a form, waiting to hear back. So I think there's a huge appetite for it.
E-commerce has made a big difference. Instead of people just going to the website and just booking tours and have to be physically in our space in order to interact with us and transact, e-commerce now gives an individual the opportunity to be able to transact without ever having to even step into our space. For us, it's been tremendous. For us, it's making a big difference in terms of the individuals that want to transact in that way.
So we're seeing an increase in revenue and a growing opportunity from the operators who've already implemented e-commerce. Now, as someone who cut his teeth in web development and building e-commerce experiences, I have my own opinions about what makes an e-commerce experience fantastic. But instead of diving into what I believe e-commerce should look like and feel like in co-working and around co-working, let's go back to our experts and find out what they think makes a fantastic e-commerce experience for co-working.
Less clicks. That's it. That's it. So your question was, what do you really need to focus on in terms of your e-commerce experience? And the answer to that is less clicks. And that's one of the things that we have hyper focused on in terms of creating a great experience. Every time the customer has to click, every time that you have to do another thing to transact, you are one step closer to that customer going somewhere else. So simplicity wins.
I think we're in a really interesting industry when it comes to defining the e-commerce experience. I find that we've probably got a little bit of an older style thinking, and there's still quite a few more steps to go to get us to the level that other industries are at. And so I would define that as more seamless connections for customers to get what they're looking for. You don't want to be sifting through websites and then redirected to another platform, and you have to start this profile and all this multi-phase journey.
I think for us, what would make a sort of fantastic e-commerce experience is being able to book products very quickly and simply, having live availability. That's always quite a crucial one. Then also comms that would come afterwards. So once they've booked the room, making sure that there's nice comms that go out afterwards that support the journey. So it's not all about why they're actually in the e-commerce journey as such when they're in the purchase journey. Is what happens after they purchase it as well, to make sure that's quite succinct. Things are branded. I think it's quite important that we have clear pricing as well.
Yeah, I think what we're always looking for in all aspects of co-working, but particularly e-commerce, is as close to a seamless experience as possible. You don't want any random errors. You don't want, some sort of box you can't fill that's actually required. You want it to feel very easy and very smooth. And you want it, even though you might have to navigate off of your website to transact, you don't want that to be noticeable. So having consistent branding, the right imagery, the right language, and being able to control those things is very, very important. And then once the actual transaction has been processed, they get the confirmation email, the team is notified, everything feels very smooth, and they might not have ever even known that they were off your website in the first place. And that's what makes that such a powerful experience, because it helps everyone stay looped in and feel right about not just putting their money into the ether.
It's got to be all about slickness, I think, and having the simplest customer journey possible. People need to know what they're getting, and they need to know that they can book it quickly. And just it's a simplicity thing. The more pain points that they have, the less likely they are to actually book through you, and they'll just end up going somewhere else. I think one of the things that I've noticed most about e-commerce, just generally, and part of the co-working industry as well, is that you want to have a streamlined user experience where the personal touch isn't required.
So now we know who's using e-commerce. We know what they consider a fantastic experience. But what exactly are they selling directly on their website? Are they putting everything up for sale? Are they limiting their kind of e-commerce rollout to only specific types of products? Or are they taking a more wait and see or paced approach to implementing their e-commerce? Let's go back to our experts to find out.
So we kind of went all in. Day passes and conference rooms are definitely our most popularly transacted items, but we also offer virtual mail on demand through Piloto as well as through FlexBase, depending on how someone accesses that, as well as private offices, which is a pretty interesting addition for us. We saw such an incredible surge of activity around day passes and conference rooms that we figured, like, why not just make everything available? And if someone's ready, they're going to pull the trigger. And of course, Commons membership, or like our equivalent of a hot desk membership.
The things you can buy through our website are primarily meeting room spaces. We found that is our number one online transaction point. People want to get on, get a space, come and visit. Then we have our day passes. Our virtual offering is something that we see a bit of uptake in as well. But the really interesting thing is around the physical offering. So while we've got some of our desks and private offices listed, we find customers want more of an in-person journey for that.
So we offer all of the 4 services that we provide, which is our private office. And this is for individuals that are just looking for a private office to themselves where they can run their business. Then we also offer private desk that individuals can transact, and then membership, and then virtual mail. And individuals also have an opportunity to be able to book our conference rooms and flex spaces.
We currently offer day passes, various co-working subscriptions. So that could be like a subscription where you get 10 day passes in the month. Another one's the full co-working experience. So you get full access to the building each month, and meeting rooms as well. But we're looking into adding dedicated desks or day desks and things like that. Is we're starting to see a bit more demand for those types of things.
So it's really interesting to see how different operators are thinking about how they're approaching and what they're selling through e-commerce in completely different ways. But it did raise a question for me. What do operators wish that they could sell via e-commerce?
Every office. If we could offer every office in e-commerce, that would be a dream. And I think in the fullness of time, we're going to get there. We are going to start, it's on the roadmap, that we're going to start offering smaller offices online and do it on an e-commerce. The challenge we have is that many companies will come in and say, I need to customize this, I need to customize that.
In some ways, private offices, I know I said that they're on there, but I think everyone wants those private offices filled, and we're fortunate to have some really great occupancy at our locations. But I think the private office transaction does require a human element, and there's a part of me that wishes it didn't, so that we could transact on them more. But ultimately, I feel like everything's been very possible. Maybe some of those add-ons from like a hospitality perspective where, oh, hey, do you want us to take care of your lunch? Or do you want coffee service? Like these things where you can just click the boxes and increase your revenue. I think that would be awesome.
There's other things that we kind of would be looking at. For example, if we were running a paid event, for example, something that was a bit more special than our regular events, to be able to run ticketing through that would be fairly simple.
You know what I think? I would love to list each individual office space. Like if a customer could jump online, see the specific office, have a number of photos, and then we need something else in there for the experience though, because we find they don't want to see just a rack rate of X amount. It's like, what's the conversation around that purchase? If we sign up for 3 years, can you offer a better rate? So like a dynamic pricing model, even some sort of slider in there that lets it calculate and adds that to that's where we're heading to next.
Some of the things on our wish list is like dynamic pricing. So often it's certain times of the day where we're seeing lower volume of day users, be able to dynamically price that and offer maybe a slightly cheaper rate on those days. That's again on the roadmap going forward. That's quite an important one. Another one is extras. Quite a lot of the time, especially if it's a meeting room booking, people are quite interested in adding on F&B packages. So it may be like teas and snacks and things like that. So we're looking into extras as well. That's another one on our wish list. I think probably as well, almost something where it's a bit like a one-click upgrade style. So if you've got a day pass user, how can you make that as efficient for them to upgrade to a full offering? That would be an excellent place to get to. I think quite an interesting one as well.
All fantastic ideas and things I'm pretty sure we'll see added to e-commerce offerings within and around co-working in the next couple of years, if not months. But we'd be but it'd be wrong to assume that all of these operators implemented e-commerce into their businesses without any challenges. So I asked them to dig in a little bit more about the things that might have gone wrong or things and the hurdles they had to overcome while implementing e-commerce.
That like clunky experience is really it was my biggest barrier, and finding the way to overcome that was really significant for us. Like we ended up just preventing people from being able to buy things directly from our operating software because we felt like the process almost turned people off, right? It made people not really want to engage. And for the shop workspace, we're definitely a luxury brand. Like we really pride ourselves on design and customer service, hospitality. And if you are already feeling like you don't quite know where you are, is this like a scam? Are you giving your credit card information to someone that you don't want to have it? Like you are not going to want to continue that transaction. You're certainly not going to feel the way we want you to feel when you come into the shop workspace. And we want those systems to feel as aligned as possible. So with that experience, like I felt a little burned. Like I felt not really eager or excited to explore e-commerce. I definitely had my stubborn hat on and figured like, okay, no, like we need the human element. That's loneliness epidemic. We're post-COVID. Like people need to talk to people. That's what it takes. And if someone calls, we'll pick it up and we'll sell them a day pass and they'll be fine. But it's really striking that balance. And I think that's what we've been able to do with FlexSpace, because people can still call. We'll still walk them through the process. They can tour before a conference room booking or an event. But if you need something and you need it now, it's happening in a really fast, seamless way. And then they'll show up the next day. We'll give them a cup of coffee and all will be well.
Challenges when we first looked at implementing e-commerce, this is going back a number of years now, but many of the challenges were around people transacting online where they didn't quite understand what it was. So we didn't explain the product as well as we could. And so we started tweaking that over time so that we're managing the expectation in terms of what is the services that we offer, number one. Number two, looking at transacting online, you'd still have a lot of people calling in to ask many questions that were already online. So what that means is that we weren't doing a good job of explaining it online. So we had to constantly go in and just retool so that people would understand really what it is that they're getting. And so you really have to look at like, what's the balance between making it super sexy, but then also providing lots of information. It's hard to put those two things together because sexy is fast, punchy, whereas has lots of information is detailed and, not, and the opposite of that. So that's where we constantly are going back and forth on how do we do that, provide all the information, but make sure we close the transaction.
I think the biggest challenges was just teaching the team how this is going to be integrated into our sales process, because our sales process, for any transaction that happens that an individual is involved in that transaction, they get a piece of the revenue or a piece of the transaction. So now when you have a totally new system coming in and being responsible for that transaction, now team members are starting to wonder like, hey, what's going to happen to that commission that usually goes to the team member? So it's just figuring out a way to just work that. So we were able to just get FlexSpace to just complete the transaction, but then send us an email where then we have a team member follow up and then properly close that individual, and then they still get their bonuses and commission.
The biggest challenges come with the implementation of the new tools, because we have something like 5 years of member data in there, built out products. So there's the training element for our team, the training element for customers as well, because it's a different experience. And so those jumps where you bring in those tools, that to get everyone comfortable is probably the biggest. But second to that, I would say, is really understanding everything that's in the toolbox when you get this tool, and make sure you set it up so that the customer experience is what you want to deliver. Like if you do one meeting room image per resource, for example, that's not a great experience because they want context of the room. So actually diving into the tool and building out every feature, that is probably the second part that takes the most time and thought.
One of the things that actually was a bit of a challenge for us was the tracking of all of it, having robust tracking through Google Analytics. Like being a digital marketer, I don't want to send people through this journey and I can't track it. So we really wanted to have a very robust system for that, and to be able to look at it, identify drop-off points, so abandonment rates at different points, and realize what's causing that. Can we go into some user behavior stuff that maybe we're getting from user like behavior systems as well, that can heat map and see where people are going and things like that. So it's something that we've got and we're always looking to improve now. And now we've got the tracking, we can identify channels that are our main traffic drivers for it. So at the moment we're seeing a lot of organic and a lot of paid traffic going through it. So we know that our campaigns are working quite well. Again, also organically, people are finding us as well for those sort of terms that they can instantly book stuff. So I think there's probably as well like SEO benefits of these things as well for people who are looking to buy day passes as well as a term. And now people have the ability to do it, or operators, once you get the ability to do it, you can then almost create journeys as well for that.
I think the biggest challenges as we move to this public pages side of thing is actually going to be trying to make sure that nothing gets lost as part of that booking system. So it'll be, kind of with me to be sorting out automations that ping people when bookings have been made, the right amount of time in advance, making sure that the room is blocked out maybe for 15 minutes before the booking, so that someone can pop in there, make sure it's ready for them. Because you do want to make a very different impression when, if you're already a member of a space and you go into a meeting room that someone else has just been in, you don't necessarily mind if there's something else on the whiteboard, if someone's left a mug in there. You kind of half the course. Whereas if you're coming into the space, you don't know what to expect, and the meeting room that you've booked isn't kind of show standard. It's a complete different. It's like walking into a hotel and the bed isn't made. It's that kind of same thing.
So far, we've actually looked at some of the theory. We looked at background, we looked at how operators are doing it, what they've learned, the challenges they've overcome. But let's take a little bit more of a practical look. Now, there are hundreds of ways to implement e-commerce for a co-working business. Instead of trying to interview everybody across the industry, we actually asked each of the experts who participated what is in their stack, and invited those vendors to take part and share how they're supporting co-working spaces, what makes them different, but also what is the unit economics. So let's jump over to a few words from some of the vendors who are helping operators make more money through e-commerce.
So what Justin and I, my co-founder, really discovered early on from our own personal experience was that it's impossible to discover and book meeting rooms and flexible workspaces online. So we were leading and managing different teams, and we always looked for meeting rooms, for team gatherings, team collaborations. And it was such a hassle to find and book those spaces. We had to make phone calls, fill forms, wait for someone to get back to us. Eventually, actually physically going to those locations and ask if there's an available meeting room for us to use. So that was a huge gap that we discovered, that co-working just does not have online presence. And that's what we really set up to do when we launched FlexSpace AI. FlexSpace is building a dedicated e-commerce platform for co-working spaces. Think of FlexSpace as Shopify for the co-working industry. What we do day in and day out is to obsess on the easiest way for customers to discover and book spaces online directly from the operator's website. So we transform offline inquiries into online transactions. We optimize pricing and revenue. we drive engagement and retention, and we enable multi-channel distribution. We convert website visitors into buyers, buyers into repeat buyers, and repeat buyers into monthly members. We started FlexSpace a few years ago. Our product is in the market with hundreds of locations using FlexSpace e-commerce platform on their website. We see millions of dollars in online transactions and real value for operators. So the average location, once the location is activated, will 5x their revenue from online transactions within the first 12 months. So FlexSpace's sole goal is to increase revenue from online transactions for operators. That's our main and only goal. For that, we align our unit economics or our business model to the operator's revenue, meaning that our model is based on success, the success fee. So we take a take rate from the transaction. Dynamic pricing is a huge part of FlexSpace value proposition. Just to put that in numbers, when we look at year over year, we saw 74% more meeting room bookings when operators implemented dynamic pricing. More specifically, we saw a 16% increase in 4+ meeting room hours. So customers are shifting to longer meeting room durations due to dynamic pricing. And overall, they increased their revenue by 50% just from dynamic pricing implemented. Concerns are primarily about the user expectations and reaction to different pricing rates. We see that as a positive because instead of offering one static price, operators can offer multiple pricing points for the same users. Same as with flights and hotels, right? So I can take the Friday afternoon flight if I want to pay more, or I can save if I wake up early and take the Friday 6 a.m. Same with what we see, the behavior that we see with coworking. One, I would say that coworking is a highly sensitive market to pricing, so discounts and different promotions really drive conversion. But our goal is not just to discount prices. Our goal is to offset demand from peak hours or peak days into lower utilization days and hours, so that overall operator will increase their revenue pie by offsetting demand from the peak usage to lower usage.
I'm part of Office R&D for almost 6 years, and before being part of product, I've been part of the onboarding team. So I have a lot of experience with a lot of different operators. So I feel like the gap I see it maybe for more than 4 or 5 years. And if I need to be more specific, on a high level, I feel like our industry is behind the world when it comes to e-commerce. Like some recent researchers are showing that maybe more than 20-30% of all the commerce that is happening around the world is e-commerce. And I feel like in our industry, those numbers are very, very low. And maybe, at least from the job I have done in the past year on the Growth Hub, maybe the main reason is that there is no technology that is good enough to actually convince the industry and the operators that they can efficiently offer, promote, and sell their products online. And at the end, like the e-commerce to be a more simplified and better performing channel versus the standard things that we're used to, like tours, phone calls, inquiries, etc., etc. So if I need to kind of summarize it, the gap I see is mainly technology. And especially in the last couple of months, when I'm talking to a lot of customers about their desire to promote and their product online, it's there. People want to offer, especially like low commitment, low value products like meeting rooms, virtual office, day passes, etc., etc. They want to be able to offer those products through a low touch online process. It's just that the technology is not there. Almost every vendor offers something to address the e-commerce problem, but neither of the solutions out there is good enough to convince the operator, in my opinion. Usually the way you build software, you have the core product and you're building a lot of features around it. The way we think about the Growth Hub and the way we're approaching the e-commerce problem in general is that we want to build a complementary product. So like end-to-end solution that helps operator to implement e-commerce as a channel and make it successful for them. So instead of just adding features here and there, we're dedicating an entire team that will be focused in the years to come just to build a proper e-commerce solution and enhance it on the way, because it takes time. It takes time to figure out what users do, optimize conversion, abandonment, stuff like that. What we started for, or the way we think about the Growth Hub, is that we want to excel in, I would say, like 4 major areas. The first one is customer experience. So we want the flow, reservation or purchase flow, depending on what type of product the end user is exploring, is to be as seamless as possible. So we're trying to optimize on number of clicks until booking. So it can currently happen with 3-4 clicks, not 3-4 clicks, but 3-4 steps before you have your meeting room booking. So customer experience is one of our major priorities. The second one is revenue growth from the operator's perspective. So we want our solution to have all the necessary features and functionalities. So we enable operators to optimize pricing, conduct different kind of promotions. And that leads me to the third point, which is data and insights. So in order for all this to work seamlessly, we're optimizing our Google Analytics integration. We will add more and more data so operators can make informed data-driven decisions in terms of where they invest their marketing budgets, how different products perform. Because one other area that is probably connected to some extent to the e-commerce is how operators experiment with new products and how quickly they can test new solutions and see if people are keen to purchase them. We do that in the software development, and in my opinion, it can easily transition to how operators think about their products as well. Mm-hmm. And probably last thing, like a major pillar for what we're building, is ongoing optimization. So we're adding all the technology we need to be able to track conversion and abandonment and kind of handle the process of optimizing those 2 major points when it comes to e-commerce on our end versus relying on the operator to track and do that on their end. Just because we are the technology provider and we believe this should be something that we take care about. First, we're focused on helping operators to monetize unused inventory, like offices were available for a month or 2 between 2 long-term rents, be able to list any kind of different products or even experiment with different products, be able to have different customer journeys per product so they can create the experience they want for their customers. On one of the pillars, like the customer experience, in our opinion, it's extremely important for e-commerce. So the easier and seamless the process for the end user, the most likely it is for them to actually buy or book something. So with our first version is a lot focused on user experience and how simple and straight the process is. And down the road, we'll be looking to add more revenue optimization functionalities in the Growth Hub. So from the very beginning, we nurtured a group of 20 operators that are helping us throughout the process to build the whole thing. 6 or 7 of them are already using the product on their websites in production. The data I can share a bit, I would say I'll be cautious about it just because it's very few operators and it's not that much, so we can like make very hard conclusions about that. But some things I can share, we definitely see increase of revenue for the majority of the operators that started using the Growth Hub. Currently, we have some folks that haven't invested in marketing a lot before the Growth Hub just because they didn't have the right tools to track how the marketing investments perform. So now with that capability, they feel more confident in investing more money in marketing. And for them, we see increase in revenue, public revenue, I mean, not in general, of like 200-300%. So it's quite a lot. And in my opinion, mainly one part of this is due to the marketing investment. And on the other hand, operators who have kind of a steady marketing investments and do not change that a lot, for them, we see roughly 40 to 60% increase of revenue that comes from their website. Yeah, that's good numbers. Although, like, I'll be cautious about them just because the sample is small yet to like make general conclusions. The other thing that I can share is probably average time of completing a booking. It varies between 2.3 to 3.2 minutes for a transaction, which is pretty good in my opinion. So that's one thing. And yeah, probably those are the major 2 points that I can share, because our main value proposition is that we can help operators increase utilization, sales, decrease cost of goods sold, and overall like increase return of investment. We're leaning towards a commission-based fee or success fee.
Before we close out this edition of Undercurrents, I went back to the experts and asked them to share one pro tip or piece of golden advice that they would want to give to other operators exploring or implementing e-commerce within their business.
My pro tip for e-commerce is don't be just the implementer, be the customer. I think switching your mind and doing testing of your tool without your thinking brain on, just be like, how can I make this purchase? I need this room, and fully immerse yourself in that. Then you'll get little highlights of, oh, this isn't great, this could be improved, this should work a bit better. I think we can get too stuck in our builder, developer mindset and forget about the experience side of the process.
I would say just like Nike, just do it, because it's an opportunity, because you're missing out on some clients and some revenue that some individuals, when they come on the website, if they're not able to transact, they're just going to leave and go to another operator's website just to check to see if they have that ability. Because sometimes for virtual mail, all they're looking for is an address in a city. There's so many different competitors in the same city. So if they're not able to transact at 12 a.m. when they've just gotten that bright idea and they're looking to transact, then you've missed the opportunity. So I say just do it, because even the revenue alone that we're getting just from individuals that decide to go that way is substantial enough.
Yeah, I think very top level, like just try it. I was so apprehensive. I'm so protective of the experience. I'm very customer obsessed, and that's what I want the shop workspace to be. So I was very hesitant to bring the robot, right? Bring the robot into the conversation. But ultimately, it was such a game changer for us. And I also think the other kind of pro tip I have is obsess as much as you do over your customer as you do over your e-commerce site, right? So if it's that little change, if the verbiage doesn't quite fit right, if you're feeling like the FAQ is missing something, like it is well within your right to go to your partner in e-commerce and say, hey, we need to make this change. Regularly update your imagery, make sure that everything feels right and it's smooth. And every now and then buy a day pass yourself on that e-commerce platform, right? Create a 100% discount, go through that process, make sure that the confirmation email that you're getting makes sense, that there's no typos. You really just need to take all of the energy that you're already putting into the people who are transacting in person and make sure you're applying that to e-commerce and you're not just setting it and forgetting it. Because I think that's where the trouble comes and the experience gets less and less smooth without that kind of polishing.
I would say, again, the robust tracking for marketing, hugely important, because at the end of the day, if you don't know where your purchases are coming from, you've got nothing to optimize on. So one of the problems is sometimes if you're paying all this money on paid media, so on your Google ads, your LinkedIn ads, or whatever your paid ads are coming from, or SEO efforts, if you actually don't know where that traffic's coming from, you've got no way to optimize. Also, Google's got no way to optimize on it because it's got no learning. Because if you're not sending data back to Google on conversions, it's got nothing to optimize towards, and you can't get very granular on different things. So you can't look at maybe different locations that people are in, or maybe there's certain messaging that's resonating quite well, or a certain audience that you're trying to target. you'd have no idea on that without the tracking. So I'd definitely, a huge one to get in is your robust tracking.
For anyone who's looking at dipping their toes in e-commerce right now, I would suggest that you look at, first of all, somewhat future proofing. I'll throw that in air quotes, but look at what's coming down the pipe. AI is definitely coming down the pipe, so it's something that you should plan for. So you should think about, like, how are you going to integrate that into your website into the future. So when you're looking at the e-commerce piece, look at what are some of the things that might be coming down the road. Talk to your web designers to say, if we were to put in AI into this process through a chatbot or whatever the case may be in terms of how you're interacting with the customer on the website, say, what platform should we use that would make this easy for us to integrate, number one. Number two, if we want to make changes, can we make them quickly without a lot of cost? Because sometimes it's very costly to make changes if you don't have the right platform or it's not easy to make changes to. And then number three, try and get a platform and plugins that make it really simple and reduce the amount of clicks for customers to close on those transactions.
I think it all comes back to actually something that in all of this automation that we've been doing across our kind of member experience as well, is figuring out what exactly what it's for, essentially what you want to be using it for. Because it's so easy to go, oh, we could sell all our offices on here, and we could sell all our event spaces, and I think we've made such a conscious choice to say these are the things that we want to take out of a kind of direct personal interaction. Meeting rooms that are a specific size, that are currently taking up a large percentage of our events managers' time, and that actually they're relatively small fry. People don't require that same kind of experience, and therefore that simple booking is the kind of easiest option. And that's, I think, where the day pass stuff, any of those kind of ticketed events come in. It's the thing where people know what they're expecting and they want to get it quickly. And then making sure that, taking out any pain points in terms of making sure everyone has the right information. I think the struggle with all kinds of kind of automations and AI and whatever it is in co-working is that the personal experience is what people value a lot of the time. And in the same way that, the gym that I go to has a pod that I put a code into, and that lets me into the building because I pay a certain low amount for the gym that I go to. But I wouldn't want to go to a co-working space where, rather than someone greeting me on reception, I punched in a number to let me into, in the same way. And I think that personal interaction is such an important part of what we sell that you wouldn't want to take it away in certain situations. Having e-commerce used in the right places, I think, is the most important thing, and that's definitely the kind of direction we're going down.
So to conclude, against the backdrop of changing consumer demand, growing high intent volume and search traffic, and a shift in how technology and how other operators are implementing e-commerce, I truly expect this to be a growing line item or growing line items for co-working spaces and flex-based businesses all across the world within the next couple of years. I hope you found this edition interesting and insightful, and please reach out to any of the experts who were featured in this, who have all volunteered to answer more questions for other operators who follow this edition. Before we sign out, I'm going to hand it back over to Miro Miroslav, who is our underwriter for this edition, to give his final thoughts around e-commerce and the new era of financial transactions in and around co-working.
Hector, first of all, big thank you for putting it together. So much work and it turned out great. I loved the report, the video and everything. It was so good to see so many known faces, so many friends and so many partners and customers and industry experts. So kudos for getting us all organized and getting us together. Overall, I think everyone was very much spot on. There is not much to add after all these amazing experts. I can probably just very briefly summarize what's top of mind for us. So certainly, we do want to help co-working space sell more. That's goal number one. Increase revenue, get more transactions, get more customers through the door, sell more meeting spaces and day passes and private offices and all the amazing products. To get there, overall, I believe there are three main components of a really performing e-commerce solution. So first of all, flawless booking engine. Then it's data and insights, super key. And then last but not least is an actual marketing engine. So you cannot actually get transactions without a marketing engine, whether that's word of mouth, whether that's search engine optimization or search engine marketing. You need something that generates interest and overall you get people to land whether on your website or your online presence. With Officer ID Growth Hub, we're trying to help with these things, especially the flawless booking engine and the data and insights. I mentioned data insights is so important because if you do not have data, and I think Lyndon and other people mentioned that if you cannot really see how the funnel is performing, you cannot spend money on marketing. It doesn't make sense. I'm super excited actually that we are seeing more and more platforms and companies out there and partners doing that because high quality e-commerce engines will inevitably result in more transactions, and also because co-working spaces will be able to spend more marketing money because they have trust in the system. So I'm excited for the future. I think we'll see more users, more customers, higher occupancy and utilization rates of these resources, especially because these are super high margin products, much higher margin products than the traditional private offices. So I think this will help co-working spaces be more profitable and more successful in the long term. And before we go, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for reading. This big shout out again to Hector and the This Week in Co-working team. Amazing job. Looking forward to the next report and next iterations. I think Hector is onto something here. So again, thank you so much. I'm Miro, CEO, co-founder at Officer ID, and we look forward to work with you all. Thank you.